Chapter 31. Invitation from Luo Chong.
In an instant, all the people in the tree tribe followed the finger of the tree stump and saw Luo Chong on the mountainside. Luo Chong also heard someone shouting in the creek at the foot of the mountain, and especially heard someone calling his name. When Luo Chong was communicating with them in the tree tribe, he taught them the Mandarin pronunciation of his name, so they all used Mandarin when they said Luo Chong's name. Following the direction of the sound, Luo Chong also saw a tree tribe beside the stream on the mountain. Why are they here? Luo Chong wondered. The 30 pairs of eyes at the foot of the mountain met the 19 pairs of eyes on the mountain. After confirming through eye contact, they all knew each other. Only Wu De and Shimin, who were strangers, started to yell in hoarse voices, but they became quiet after Luo Chong hit them with 2 branches. Luo Chong looked at the big tree at the foot of the mountain and waved to it, asking it to come up. He didn't want to run back and forth again, as he still had to go mining. More than 10 minutes later, Dashu finally brought a group of people up the hillside. Only then did Luo Chong see their appearance clearly and couldn't help frowning. How could he be so miserable? He brought his whole family, even his children, with him. He was dirty and not as white as I saw before. He looked like a beggar. No, he was even worse than a beggar. Dashu looked exhausted, but when he saw Luo Chong again, he was immediately shocked. He knew Luo Chong was looking for an animal with horns, but he didn't expect that he actually caught so many alive. If the cannibal tribe riding 2 Deinonychus gave him the feeling of being invincible, then Luo Chong's behavior could be regarded as godlike. Don't worry about their size, just the 2:18 ratio. It's not of the same order of magnitude, not to mention that Luo Chong's blue antelope is not small. It's almost the same size as a modern donkey. Luo Chong saw their embarrassed faces, each holding a wild fruit in his hand. They couldn't even eat meat, and he didn't know why they were in such a miserable state. He quickly took out the giant goose and roasted beaver from the big basket carried by a horse antelope and shared them with them. He also gave the stone axe to Mu Tong and asked him to get some firewood and light a fire to keep warm. Dashu watched as Luo Chong poured some smoking sawdust from a bone tube, put it in the hay and blew on it, and it caught fire. He was immediately curious, thinking that this was actually possible, and he couldn't help but admire Luo Chong even more. Under the surprised gazes of the tree tribe members, Luo Chong took out a nice-looking earthenware reddish-brown pottery pot with a lid and put it on the fire. He cut some meat slices into it, put some wild vegetables in it, added water, salt, and chili peppers, and in less than 10 minutes the aroma of wild vegetable barbecue soup came out. Because the meat was roasted in advance, it didn't need to be stewed for a long time, just boil the water. Luo Chong asked Mutant to bring a wooden bowl and filled a large bowl for him, and asked them to take turns to drink, each taking a sip. The big tree took a sip first. It tasted salty, similar to their tree sap, but also a little spicy. After drinking it, his whole body felt warm and he was no longer cold. There were also slices of meat in the soup with thick oil floating on it, which made the wild vegetables look delicious. After one bite, his mouth was full of fragrance. Can meat be eaten like this? Everyone looked at Dashu with a look of enjoyment on his face. Dashu finally came to his senses, scratched his head embarrassedly, and quickly passed the drink to others. After everyone had enjoyed it, the soup was gone. The pot was too small and was originally intended for Luo Chong alone. But everyone looked at Luo Chong differently now. The magical fire, the magical clay pot, the magical way of eating, the magical soup, and the team of blue gazelles. Now they looked at Luo Chong as if he were a god. Luo Chong waved his hands indifferently. He had long been numb to such surprised expressions, so he casually asked why they were so miserable. Dashu immediately started to complain, and others also added to his comments with gestures. Luo Chong then realized the reason and couldn't help but gasp. There were actually cannibals nearby. Where did they come from? You know, the Shu tribe is only a day's journey away from Luo Chong's Han tribe. Since the cannibals have reached the Shu tribe, how far is it from his own tribe? No, he must go back quickly. At this time, Luo Chong is already a little eager to go home. He is also worried that his tribe will be attacked. He hopes that the river can stop them for a few more days. I still have to prepare some things today, and we'll go back tomorrow. What are your plans? Luo Chong made a decision and asked about Dashu's plan. We. Dashu didn't know how to answer for a moment. Yes, what else can they do? They fled in a hurry and didn't take anything with them. Where else can they go? The treehouse was also burned down. Winter is coming soon. Now they don't even have a place to stay. They can't go back to the forest. There are still enemies there. Who knows when they will come again? For a moment, all the people in the tree tribe lowered their heads. They had nowhere to go. If Luo Chong hadn't given them some barbecue just now, they probably wouldn't even have meat to eat. And now that they had no food reserves, what would they do this winter? Why don't you join my tribe? You have too few people, and you have no way to protect yourself if you encounter the enemy. Moreover, you have no place to live and food for the winter, so you will definitely not survive the winter. The food we have stored is enough for us to eat together for the whole winter. There will be no problem for you to join my tribe. Luo Chong invited Dashu. Yes, Luo Chong has a lot of food, so there is no problem feeding his tribe for a whole winter. Dashu looked at the blue gazelles that were nibbling on the bushes not far away. There was so much meat that 30 people couldn't finish it in a whole winter, and Dashu was tempted. If Luo Chong knew what Dashu was thinking, he would be so angry that he would vomit blood. He had spent so much effort and finally caught a group of live blue gazelles. How could he possibly eat them? The people of the tree tribe were very eager to agree. They were completely impressed by the pot of soup, especially the children. They had never eaten anything so delicious before. The only hot food they had ever eaten before was barbecue, and they had never had broth. Besides, they couldn't put their wooden barrels on the fire. Moreover, they had seen Luo Chong's weapon. With that thing called a bow and arrow, they would not lack prey, nor would they be bullied by the enemy. At least they could protect themselves. Now they all looked at the tree with burning eyes, hoping that their leader would agree. Dashu also knew that this was the best solution, but he was still a little worried. He thought Luo Chong was a good person, but would his people accept someone from their tribe? After hesitating for a while, he still asked, "You invite us to join, will your leader agree? Will your people agree?" Hearing this, Luo Chong laughed. Because he was on guard against them, Luo Chong did not tell them his identity or the specific location of his tribe. He just said it was on the other side of the river. Now he had to explain everything.
Chapter 32. Critical Moment.
Haha, you don't have to worry about this, because I am the leader. As long as I agree, my people will not object. Besides, my people are also very kind. As long as you are willing to join, you will definitely get the same treatment as my people. What? You are the leader? Dashu asked in disbelief, but after thinking about it for a while, he was relieved. Yes, although Luo Chong was younger, his ability was not weak. Take those blue gazelles for example, even an adult might not be able to catch them. Moreover, he could actually live in the wild for so long by himself and live a better life than them. This is not something that ordinary people can do. After thinking for a while, Dashu said, "Then, will you give us the same weapons?" Dashu had been envious of Luo Chong's weapons for a long time. Whether it was a white-handled spear or a longbow with feather arrows, they were all things he had always dreamed of. Moreover, as long as Luo Chong was willing to give them weapons, he definitely had no intention of harming them. Just ask, who would give such good weapons to an imaginary enemy? Luo Chong smiled slightly, handed his spear directly to the big tree, the stone axe to the wooden barrel, and the 1.5-meter-long rattan shield to the tree stump. The tree stump was not tall but very strong, so it would be best for him to hold the shield. Okay, now I've given you all my weapons. You only have one bow and arrow, and you can't use it well. When we return to my tribe, I'll give each of you weapons. Okay, I agree to join your tribe. Holding the spear in his hand, Dashu no longer hesitated. He really wanted a bow and arrow, but he had tried it himself last time and found that the bow and arrow was indeed not easy to use. Luo Chong did not lie to him. After breakfast, they directly annexed the tree tribe. Dashu and his tribe had also reached the end of their rope, so they did not have much resistance to this. Moreover, judging from Luo Cheng's appearance, they would definitely live a better life if they joined his tribe. Dashu also showed Luo Cheng the snow rabbits he had caught. There were more than 30 of them, big and small, but most of them were small, with no more than 10 big ones. Luo Cheng was very happy. He couldn't suppress his excitement when he thought of the speed at which rabbits give birth to a litter every 2 months. His requirements were not high. As long as there were no less than 4 litters a year, he would be acceptable. After all, although the production speed of 1 litter every 2 months was theoretically no problem, it was not good for rabbits. They would need to take care of their bodies after giving birth to too many litters. I even gave the rabbits some time to recuperate after the baby's birth. I am really a good person, Luo Cheng thought shamelessly in his heart. After breakfast, Dashu thought Luo Cheng would go back immediately, but he didn't expect him to start digging stones on the mountain again. Dashu asked him what he wanted these for, saying that these stones were just for decoration and he could just take 1 or 2 pieces for decoration, but he actually saw Luo Cheng putting them in a basket. How much is this going to take away? With these stones, I can make better weapons and have enough food to eat 3 times a day, Luo Cheng said in a firm tone. Oh shit, is this true? Dashu and the others were completely stunned. Eat 3 meals a day, and you will be so full that you can't finish the food. What does it mean to eat 3 meals a day? Dashu and his friends have never tried it. Not to mention them, even the people in the Han tribe have never eaten 3 meals a day. During the worst time in winter, they sometimes only eat once every 2 days. The other thing is weapons. These stones can actually be made into weapons? And they are better than bows and spears? What the hell are you waiting for? Let's dig. Based on the trust in Luo Cheng, or the blind faith in the magic shown by Luo Cheng. Yes, it can now be called faith, being able to play with stones in so many ways. This is something that only God can do. With the participation of others, the digging speed became much faster, and by noon, all the large baskets were filled. This time I didn't bring a copy of every type of ore, but mainly took a few of them. The copper-rich chalcopyrite and tin ore were the most abundant, and I also took a lot of red termite holes and kaolin, which were used to make crucibles and casting molds. Because we did physical work today, we had another meal at noon, which also gave them a taste of the feeling of 3 meals a day. In the afternoon, the team started to set off, and the formation of Blaubox became a row of 18, each carrying 2 large or small rattan baskets on its back, filled with ore, grass, rabbits, and seeds. This time, everyone lit torches openly and marched westward. They did not move very fast. As they walked, Luo Cheng taught Dashu and the others how to use spears, javelins, stone axes, and shields for defense. They also shot some rabbits to replenish food and animal skins. Luo Cheng got angry when he talked about this. Last time when he left the tree tribe, he gave the rabbit skins he had hunted to the big tree to dry, saying that he would come back to get them. But now they have all been snatched away by the cannibals or burned. He has to hunt more rabbits to bring back, otherwise this trip will be in vain. His original goal was to find animal skins, so he must not forget his original intention. They walked all the way until night, and everyone started to prepare dinner and rest. They arranged the shifts of the secret guards, fed hay to the black antelopes and rabbits, and then everyone went to bed early. The first half of the night was relatively quiet, with only the crackling sound of the burning campfire. It was just a little windy tonight, and the weather was getting colder. Fortunately, everyone had clothes, a campfire, and hot soup to keep warm. Otherwise, a few people would definitely fall ill. It was not until the second half of the night that Luo Cheng, who was lying on the ground, suddenly felt the ground vibrate, a muffled sound of thump-thump, as if some huge monster was moving. Luo Cheng instantly remembered the long-nosed monster that Dashu had mentioned, the one that the cannibals rode. Get up, everyone. Get up. Be alert. There are enemies. Put out the fire, quickly. Luo Cheng kicked and pulled everyone to get up and put out the fire immediately. Whether fighting a night battle or an encounter battle, The most taboo thing is that the enemy is in the dark while you are in the light. If there are torches all around you and others can see you clearly, but you cannot see others, isn't that seeking death? Luo Chong pulled out the burning wood from the campfire and threw it far away in the direction of the noise. Dashu and the others also took up their weapons and blocked the child behind them. Oh! Oh! Accompanied by two sharp and slightly immature elephant roars, two huge figures suddenly appeared in the firelight in the distance. Dozens of people held torches, stone spears, bone guns, and stone axes in their hands. Their faces were painted with hideous patterns in red and white paint, and bone ornaments made of human bones were hung around their necks. They rushed towards this side ferociously. The leader was a man riding an elephant, holding a bone spear, with a finger bone necklace around his neck and a palm-sized skull pendant hanging below. With a wave of his hand, a group of younger brothers started charging forward with a roar. Hurry up and run with your men, and go around them from the north. Looking at this situation, Luo Chong pointed to the north and immediately gave an order, asking Dashu to lead his tribesmen and the horse antelope team to go around the enemy from the north.
Chapter 33. Annihilate the enemy in motion.
It would be unwise to confront them head-on at this moment. Our number of people is small and our weapons are pitifully few. The other side also has two charging mammoths. If we let them get within 50 meters, at least half of our people will be killed in a single round of covering attacks with spears. Luo Chong's only advantage is a longbow. The longbow has a range of 100 meters. If the feather arrows are equipped with steel armor, piercing arrows, it will be no problem to penetrate a layer of plate armor and a layer of shuttle armor within 100 meters. If it is a 1.8-meter longbow, the maximum range of the projectile can reach 350 meters. Although Luo Chong's longbow is not up to standard and the feather arrows do not have armor-piercing arrows, it is still possible to shoot at unprotected targets within 100 meters. The enemy only had throwing weapons such as javelins and stone axes, and most people could only throw them 30 meters away. Even if he had superb skills and supernatural powers, he could only throw 50 or 60 meters at most. As long as he could keep his distance, Luo Chong could completely kill them outside the enemy's range. The honest man mutant had no weapons, so he took Shimin and Wuda and led everyone to escape by a detour, while the big tree, the wooden barrel and the tree stump followed Luo Chong to cover the rear. Dashu looked a little nervous as he saw the enemy charging towards him on an elephant. His hand holding the spear was shaking slightly, but looking at Luo Chong next to him, he seemed very calm. Dashu gritted his teeth and forced himself to calm down. At this time, Luo Chong was estimating the distance of the enemy. 250 meters. 200 meters. 150 meters. Luo Chong began to raise his bow. 100 meters. Knocking the arrow. 80 meters. Draw your bow and aim. 70 meters. Release the arrow. With a whoosh, the white arrow shaft, driven by the tail feathers, spun through the air. An enemy who was rushing in the front was holding a stone axe and was about to throw, but was pierced through the chest by the arrow. The blood in his heart found a breakthrough point to the outside, and a stream of blood spurted out with a whoosh, and his whole body fell to the ground. The enemies around were stunned for a moment, watching a pointed wooden stick appear on the back of their companion, who was lying on the ground twitching, with a pool of blood quickly flowing out from under his body, and died in the blink of an eye. In the moment he was stunned, two more arrows flew towards him, and the two people near the corpse were shot and fell to the ground. One of them was shot in the throat and fell to the ground, struggling weakly. No matter how hard he tried to breathe, he always felt like he was not full, and after struggling for a few times, he stopped moving. At this time, the captain of the elephant riding team discovered Luo Chong in the distance. He was the kid with tied hair who threw a small wooden stick at him with a strange weapon. He roared and called on his younger brothers to continue chasing him, rushing forward and throwing a round of stone axes first. Run, run quickly, they are about to throw stone axes. Seeing the enemy continue to charge, Luo Chong grabbed the still-dazed big tree and dragged him to chase in the direction of the main force. The enemy continued to chase. Luo Chong ran in front, pulling the big tree, and Shut Up followed behind with a 1.5-meter-long shield. The leader riding the elephant shouted, and in an instant, dozens of stone axes flew towards them from behind. Luo Chong had been looking behind him out of the corner of his eye when he saw this scene. His pupils couldn't help but shrink. He grabbed the big tree and hid behind a tree. Seeing this, Mu Tong also followed suit and hid. The tree stump took a lunge and leaned sideways, squatting slightly with his legs, holding the rattan shield behind him. Then there were a series of muffled sounds of puff, 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 clang, clang, and 2 stone axes hit the shield directly. Fortunately, the shield was made of thick rattan, but it probably wouldn't last many hits under such a force. Mu Tong, who was hiding behind a tree, saw the stone axes scattered on the ground. He quickly picked up 2 stone axes and threw them back. The enemy obviously did not expect that the 4 people in front would dare to fight back under such an attack. In the dense charge formation, 2 people were hit and fell to the ground in an instant, but it was unknown whether they were dead or not. Seeing that it was working, Mu Tong picked up 2 stone axes and pretended to throw them, but was pulled back by Luo Chong. Run quickly, don't get entangled with them, fight from a distance. In this way, the 4 people ran wildly in the front, and the enemy was chasing them closely behind. After a distance of 100 meters, Luo Chong stopped and shot 4 arrows in a row, knocking down 4 people again. The enemy rushed up again, and there was another wave of attacks with stone axes and spears. The tree stump once again used the big shield to withstand 3 stone axes and a javelin. The stone spear tip instantly penetrated the shield, but only the spear tip went through and did not hurt the tree stump. Mu Tong also took advantage of the enemy's gap in attack and threw 2 stone axes, hitting 2 more people. This time one of them was hit on the head and his head was smashed open. The man's head was instantly covered in blood and flesh, and his brain burst. As the former tree leader, Da Shu naturally didn't want to be left out, so he pulled out the stone spear from the shield and threw it back. Da Shu was originally tall and strong, and this time he got even more ruthless and actually threw the stone spear out of a range of nearly 60 meters and threw it into the enemy's crowd, killing an enemy on the spot and nailing him to the ground alive, unable to fall even if he wanted to. Run! The shield can't hold up. Luo Chong held the 3 people who were furious and continued to run. He was fine. He had killed many people in his previous life as a soldier, so he was calm. But this was the first time for Da Shu and the others to kill their own kind. Whether they were nervous, excited, or excited, they were easily irrational. This is just like many new recruits. They are nervous when they kill someone for the first time, but feel excited when they kill someone for the second time. They get excited when they kill someone for the 3rd time, and then they become bloodthirsty and ready to kill. As for the discomfort, nausea, or fear of killing people, haha, sorry, those are all things after the war. When your nerves are tense and about to break on the battlefield, who has the time to think about that? After going back and forth like this for 4 times, Luo Chong and the 3 guys who were panting like cows stopped. Da Shu and the other 3 rested on the ground with the stone spears they had picked up. He had no idea where the wicker shield had been thrown away, but he only remembered that when Tree Stump raised the shield for the last time, 2 stone spears were stuck on it. Fortunately, he only suffered minor scratches. The life-saving rattan shield that Luo Chong used to reduce pressure in the swamp died gloriously in less than 3 days. The pursuers behind were not in much better shape either. They were so tired that they were hanging out their tongues like dead dogs. One of them even vomited from running so hard that he was holding onto the elephant's leg and vomiting all over the place. Then he suddenly lay on the ground with his chest heaving like a bellows. The original team of 40 people now has only 7 people left. The others are either dead or injured. The people who caught up don't have much combat effectiveness. It is estimated that if they are asked to throw spears at this time, they can hardly throw them 20 meters. Only the 2 people riding elephants still have the strength to fight. The 2 sides were about 80 meters apart. The leader of the elephant riders was a little puzzled when he saw that Luo Chong and his men had stopped running. Then he looked around and saw that there were only a few people left, and they were all exhausted. He was immediately furious. There were only 4 people on Luo Chong's side, and they were very tired. The leader of the elephants wondered if they could charge again. After all, it was not just a matter of food now, but had risen to the level of hatred. He now wants to charge again. Although there are only 7 people left on his side, they are still more than the enemy. Besides, they have no shields anymore. What can they use to block this attack?
Chapter 34. I can't support you.
Thinking of this, the leader of the elephants shouted at his younger brothers again, drew his spear back, and rushed forward again. Luo Chong raised his bow and arrow, aimed at the elephant rider, steadied his breathing, and shot an arrow when the elephant rider was 70 meters away. The arrow hit the rider in the right eye. With a scream, the leader fell off the elephant's back and was stepped on by the advancing elephant's hind legs. His intestines were squeezed out, and he died miserably. The elephant suddenly lost its controller on its back and felt as if it had just stepped on something soft and unknown. It looked back in a daze and suddenly felt unwell. What did I step on? When did he get under my feet? The confused elephant didn't know what to do and just stood there motionless. The younger brothers next to him were also a little confused. How could the boss die suddenly? However, they did not stop charging forward. Fight back, rush forward, and throw the spear. Seeing that Dashu and the others had finally caught their breath, Luo Chong took advantage of the other party's daze and issued the order for a counterattack. The 4 of them distanced themselves and rushed towards the enemy. They stopped and threw spears after advancing 10 meters. At this time, the 2 sides were only 40 meters apart. The enemy also quickly stopped and threw spears, but was still a step too slow. The 3 spears of Dashu and his men and an arrow of Luo Chong flew over first and killed 3 more people in an instant. Now there were only 3 enemies left alive, and they began to panic. Luo Chong pulled out another arrow from the quiver and rushed forward again, scaring the 3 men so much that they quickly turned around and fled. The man riding the elephant was still trying to control the elephant to turn around, but later he felt it was too slow and jumped directly off the elephant's back. As a result, he was pierced through the chest by an arrow before he landed on the ground. He ran back a few steps and fell to the ground. Dashu and his 2 companions also rushed over from behind Luo Chong. 3 stone axes flew out with the sound of wind and killed the last 2 remaining enemies. At this point, the jungle chase guerrilla war finally came to an end. At the cost of minor injuries to Tree Stump and Wooden Barrel, Luo Chong took advantage of the range advantage, the advanced guerrilla tactics, and the Tree Tribe's home advantage in terrain to perfectly annihilate the enemy. Dashu and the other 2 couldn't believe it now. Just 4 of them could have taken out a team of 40 people. Oh, yes, there were also 2 Deinonychus. Luo Chong turned around, looked at the 2 big guys who were standing there in a daze, and then gave new orders. Tree Stump, you wait here. Wooden Barrel, go find all the tribesmen. Big Tree, come with me to finish off the enemy. Finishing the hit? What is last hitting? Dashu asked puzzledly. Just kill those who have not been killed. Some enemies were injured by stone axes just now, but they are not dead yet. We can't let them live. Luo Chong carried the longbow on his back, picked up the bone spear of the enemy leader, and stabbed the corpses on the ground one by one. Dashu said, "Oh," in understanding, and followed Luo Chong back to the route they had just followed. They killed some of the corpses on the road again, retrieved the feather arrows, and collected the intact stone spears and stone axes. As a result, the 2 unattended elephants kept following Luo Chong and made 2 "oh" sounds. Luo Chong stopped and turned around. One of the macaques came over and poked Luo Chong in the chest with its trunk. Shit, what does this mean? Can someone translate it for me? The big guy in front of him stared at Luo Chong with his cute big eyes, and his long eyelashes fluttered like little fans. But no matter how strong and cute you are, don't follow me. Luo Chong thought speechlessly. This is a real Deinotherium. Luo Chong had only seen the skeleton of Deinotherium in museums before, but this time he finally saw a living one. Although Deinotherium and the mammoth are both giant elephants, it also has its own distinctive characteristics. The mammoth looks similar to modern elephants, except that it is larger in size and has longer hair. But Deinotherium was different. The tusks of other elephants grew on both sides of their lips, extending forward and curling upward at the ends, but the tusks of Deinotherium grew on the lower lip, extending downward and then bending backward. Moreover, they were not as long as the tusks of the mammoth. If it had such long tusks, it could pierce its chest when it lowered its head. Therefore, this thing has a very high recognition rate and is one of the most bizarre-looking elephants. Although these two little guys are only 2 meters tall and still in their infancy, an adult Deinotherium is a behemoth with a length of 8 meters, a height of more than 5 meters, and a weight of about 15 tons. It is a species that can even fight against Tyrannosaurus rex. It's just that they are not from the same period. When they stand there, they are as big as a 2-story building. How much food must they eat in a day? Luo Chong pulled its nose away and said, "Go away. You are free now. Don't follow me. I can't afford to support you. If you want to engage in breeding business, you have to consider the benefits. If the value brought is not as much as the consumption, then why do I need you?" Luo Chong planned to raise rabbits for their meat and skin. Rabbits don't eat much, reproduce quickly, and don't attack people, so they are very suitable for breeding. The purpose of raising the blue gazelle is to use it as a donkey. It can be used to pull carts, plow the fields, and can also turn circles when harnessed to a mill. Luo Chong can afford its appetite. But why are you, a Deinonychus, joining in the fun? Are you going to use it to grind a mill? How big would that mill be? If you use it to plow the land, it will leave holes in the ground. If you use it to pull a truck, it must be a container trailer that matches its size. But there are mountains and jungles everywhere here. Where can you let my trailer go? Taking all the above into consideration, Luo Chong had no intention of adopting these two little guys, as he really couldn't afford to raise them. So he ignored them and continued to move forward with Da Shu to finish off the enemy. They arrived at the place where the two sides had just made contact, which was also the camping site of Luo Chong and his group, but there were only 36 corpses along the way. According to Da Shu, there should be 40 people, but now there are 4 missing. No one was seen alive, and no one was seen dead. This made Luo Chong feel bad, as if the target had run away during the mission. But there is no way to find him now. If someone wants to hide in such a large dark forest, we may not be able to find him even if we mobilize 10,000 people to search for him. After struggling for half the night, at dawn, the stump and the barrel finally brought the main force back. Fortunately, both the number of people and the supplies were not reduced. When everyone sat down to rest, Luo Chong asked Da Shu to distribute the captured stone spears and axes to everyone. Except for the children, everyone had weapons for self-defense. Then he let everyone eat breakfast. Breakfast was roasted rabbit. There was no water source nearby, but Mu Tong got some red salty tree sap from somewhere, which provided everyone with some salt and water. The excess sap was also used to wash the wounds. According to Da Shu, wounds healed faster with this kind of sap and were less likely to die. Wow, it seems that this thing also has anti-inflammatory and bactericidal effects. As far as Luo Chong knows, only the sap of modern dragon blood trees has this function. As for those ancient tree species from primitive times, he doesn't know many of them. The blue gazelles and rabbits were still eating the grass they brought with them, which was bundled by Luo Chong from the edge of the swamp. But now 2 strange big guys came to eat for free, which made Wuda and Shimin unhappy, but they could only endure it. They were half the size of the others, so they were pushed aside when eating grass. They didn't even dare to fart and were as obedient as quails. Seeing that the fodder for 2 meals was gone in an instant, Luo Chong wanted to curse.
Chapter 35. You're still following me, I'm home.
Damn it, you two should just leave, I beg you. I really can't afford to support you. Luo rushed over and pushed their butts, but they didn't even shake their tails. No, They just shook their tails a few times and then continued to roll up grass with their noses to eat. What the hell? I'm going to beat you to death. Luo Chong went in front of them and punched it in the eye, but before he could do that, damn, the Deinonychus looked at Luo Chong with its innocent eyes. It didn't dodge when it saw the fist coming and looked aggrieved and about to cry. It's up to you. I really can't bring myself to bully a child. Luo Chong withdrew his hand and turned around. Just as he was about to leave, the Deinonychus actually used his trunk to roll up a handful of grass and handed it to Luo Chong. It looked like it was saying, "Eat it quickly, it's delicious." It fluttered its big eyes, looking so cute. Hee hee, good boy, you are so good. Eat it yourself, brother doesn't want to eat this. Luo Chong showed a smile that was uglier than crying, and took the grass helplessly and stuffed it into its mouth again. Hurry up and pack your things, we're leaving right away. Luo Chong gritted his teeth secretly, determined to get rid of these two sticky people. After packing up their belongings and arranging the hungry antelopes back in line, Wuda and Shimin cried out in displeasure. Luo rushed forward and slapped them twice. Why didn't you yell when they were trying to steal your food just now? Why are you yelling now? If you have the guts, go and grab it from them yourself. After all the people and the black antelopes had set out for the river, Luo Chong stayed at the back and brought 2 bundles of grass to the 2 mammoths, leaving them for them to eat slowly, and then he ran away. After walking a long way, Luo Chong saw 2 mammoths still eating grass and couldn't help but breathe a sigh of relief. He didn't know how the cannibals in the past raised them and what they fed them. They looked like starving ghosts. The team walked west for a whole morning and finally saw the former tree tribe. The huge tree house was still emitting white smoke, and the inside had turned to ashes. The circle of large trees outside was not much burned. There was no gasoline here, so it was quite difficult to completely set such a large living tree on fire. Dashu and the others were a little sad, but life had to go on. Since they were still alive, they had to live better, so they had to continue on the road. When we arrived at the tree tribe, we were not far from the river. After walking for another 20 minutes, we arrived at the place where Luo Chong had fought the lungfish, but there were no lungfish here anymore. Dashu and his friends had never been to the other side of the river, and they didn't know what the other side looked like, but crossing the river was not difficult for them. The natural tree bridge above the river was the best way to cross the river. Luo Chong had walked along that side at first, but he fell down halfway through. However, not everyone can climb trees, such as the blue gazelle. Chief, how are we going to get through? What about those 4-legged animals? Mudong looked at the group of black antelopes and became worried. It was easy to deal with them themselves. But what about those black antelopes and the stones that Luo Chong mentioned, which could allow them to have 3 meals a day? Don't worry, they can swim by themselves and can just swim over. Go and cut some long branches first, Luo Chong said calmly. 20 minutes later, in front of everyone's surprised gazes, Luo Chong made a new fish-skin canoe and tied ropes at both ends of the canoe. Let Dashu climb over the tree bridge to the other side of the river first, then grab the rope at one end of the boat and put the big basket carried by the black antelope in the boat. Dashu will pull the boat over from the other side of the river and take out the basket, and Luo Chong will then pull the empty boat back. In this way, they carried one big basket at a time, and then one person at a time, and slowly they all crossed by boat. Fortunately, the river was not very wide, only 10 meters, so the speed was still very fast, but it was a little troublesome. In the end, only Luo Chong and 18 blue gazelles were left. In order to make the black antelopes cross the river obediently, Luo Chong took off all his clothes and jumped into the water, leading them to swim across one by one. After the black antelopes had dried their fur, put their baskets back on their backs, and Luo Chong had put on his clothes, the group continued on their journey. The scenery on the west bank of the stream is different. There are no dense black iron trees here, only tall and straight broad-leaved forests and coniferous forests. The sun shines warmly in the forest, and the autumn wind is also ruthlessly pulling the big trees. Pieces of leaves are inhumanely pulled down by the autumn wind, and at the same time, It also brings some nuts to the pheasants foraging on the ground. Whoosh! Luo Chong shot another pheasant, which was happily picked up by Mu Tong. Following the new boss, he no longer had to worry about food. It was not until evening that the sky became dark and the sun was about to set. Little Tubing was finishing work with his mother at the riverside, and he would look towards the north from time to time. Ever since Luo Chong left, he followed his mother to the riverside to fish every day just to wait for Luo Chong. His mother told him that the leader left from that side, so he came here to wait every day. It was getting dark, and his mother had started to pack up the fish they had caught, but the chief didn't come back again today. Tubing was a little disappointed. Why didn't the chief brother who was so kind to him come back yet? Mom, does the chief not want us anymore? Tubing tugged at his mother's clothes and asked her in the local dialect of the tribe. No, he is the leader. He won't abandon us. The woman rubbed Tubing's head and said with a smile. The woman sighed in her heart. It was true that Luo Chong was the leader, but in her eyes he was just a minor. He had been out for such a long time. Who knew if he was still alive? It was so dangerous outside that even adults didn't dare to go out alone. However, she didn't dare say these words to Tubing, for fear that he would be sad. The woman picked up 2 baskets of fish with a wooden stick and put them on her shoulders. She looked towards the north worriedly, but when she looked, she actually saw several figures in the woods in the distance. There's someone over there. Get your weapons. The woman suddenly pointed to the north and shouted. The women in the fishing team quickly put down today's catch. Each took out a white pole spear and pointed it to the north. Xiao Tubing was also pulled behind. Mom, it's the leader. Tubing stuck his head out from behind, and with his sharp eyes he recognized at a glance that the person walking in front was the leader of his tribe. Tubing, I'm back. Finally they were home. When Luo Chong saw them, he waved his hands and shouted happily. Oh! Oh! Suddenly, 2 loud elephant roars came from the other side of the river, attracting everyone's attention. Fuck you. You're still following me? I'm already home. Luo Chong wanted to cry. He walked so far but still couldn't get rid of those 2 elephants. They were like 2 gluttons. How much food did they need to eat every day? Did I owe you this in my previous life? The 2 mammoths actually followed Luo Chong all the way to the other side of the river, and only emerged from the woods when they reached the Han tribe. Luo Chong was still muttering to himself, Don't come over, don't come over. But how could a small river 8 or 9 meters wide stop an elephant? Elephants are born to swim, okay? With 2 splashes, the 2 macaques jumped into the river, splashing huge waves. In less than 10 seconds, they climbed up again. Luo Chong was shocked at that moment. The baby Deinonychus were angry. Luo Chong actually gave them the grass and then left them and ran away. Fortunately, they had a well-developed sense of smell and were able to chase him all the way.
Chapter 36. Inventor of the Han tribe.
As soon as the 2 elephants came ashore, they trotted to Luo Chong, sprayed him with the water they had just sucked up from their noses, and then pushed him with their noses. Luo Chong wiped the water off his face helplessly and patted their noses. Since you are in my territory, if you want to eat my food, you have to work for me. I won't support you for nothing. Do you understand? Luo Chong didn't know whether he understood or not, but the 2 mammoths patted Luo Chong on the head with their trunks, and he didn't know what this meant. The women in the fishing team were frightened when they saw the 2 giant beasts running towards their leader. Then they found that they did not attack their leader, but instead acted very familiar with them. This surprised them. The leader was so powerful that he could subdue such huge monsters. Tubing ran over immediately and hugged Luo Chong's thigh affectionately, not afraid of the giant beast next to him at all. Luo Chong told them that the newcomers were new members of the tribe, and then he took them back to the cave. He also put little Tubing on Shimon's back and asked him to ride for a while the 2 baby mammoths were already running wildly in the open space. The members of the Yuanshu tribe and the fishing team were looking at each other. The fishing team's eyes were basically on the 18 blue gazelles, while Dashu and his men were observing the women of the Han tribe, looking at their hairstyles, leather boots, the fish in the baskets, and the white-handled spears that each of them had. This is Dashu's favorite white-handled spear. Each of them actually has one, which really makes Dashu envious. But when he thinks that he has now joined the Han tribe, he feels a little excited. The entrance of the cave is also very busy now. It is dusk and all the people in the tribe have gathered here. They have seen Luocheng returning and the two big monsters having fun. Leader. Everyone stood up straight, and when they saw Luo rushing over, they shouted in unison. Well, I'm back and I brought a lot of things this time. These are the new members of the tribe. You must treat them like your own people in the future. And those four-legged animals, don't kill them, they are not for eating. Luocheng came to the crowd and explained. Everyone said they understood, and then Luocheng told everyone to prepare dinner and to make more today. The clever Tsubing took the initiative to act as a commentator, introducing various things to Dashu and the others with his little mouth, which stunned Dashu and the others. There were dozens of pots here that were even bigger than the one Luocheng used, as well as beautiful ceramic bowls, jars, and pots, all of which looked like they were carved from the same mold, making them too embarrassed to take out their wooden bowls. Moreover, everyone in the Han tribe wore leather boots and tied their hair up, but only Luocheng wore a hairpin. Today's prey was placed at the entrance of the cave, including countless fish and a one-toothed pig with more than a dozen holes pierced all over its body, weighing more than 1,000 pounds. It seemed that the hunting team could already use spears flexibly, which made Luocheng very happy. Dashu and his companions also had a general understanding of the strength of the Han tribe, and the food stored by this tribe was indeed enough for them to eat during the winter. The children were also very diligent. They were standing on a grass hill nearby and confronting the baby macaques. That was the grass they had pulled these days. Judging from the size of the grass pile, it should be enough for the blue gazelle and the two macaques to eat for a whole winter. Before leaving, Luocheng arranged for them to clean up the open area outside the cave. The children did a very good job. Except for some grass, there were no more plants such as bushes on the open area. Luocheng happily rewarded each of them with 2 rabbit skins, and the children happily went to find their mother to make clothes. The baby Deinonychus finally had a hug with the grass hill, and the blue gazelles took off all their belongings and let them climb the grass hill together. In an open space not far away, a large pile of red bricks had been piled up. The lame man reported to Luocheng that he could burn 4 kills every day. He also made a tool for the children and proudly took it out to show Luocheng. When Luocheng saw the tools the lame man took out, he was stunned. What the lame man handed him was actually a simple wooden rake, which was similar to the one Zhu Beiji had. The lame man also demonstrated to Luocheng how to use the rake to rake grass. Damn, I was wondering how a grass mountain was created. Turns out this is how it was created. Great job, lame guy. You can even invent something, your brain has opened up, you have the potential to be an inventor. Luocheng was shocked, but also very happy. This is progress. He praised the lame man a few words, and then told him that he didn't need to burn bricks tomorrow, but to burn a batch of pottery for the new members of the tribe. The lame man nodded to show that he understood. Speaking of pottery, the elder next to him expressed that he had something to say. The elder told Luocheng that a few days ago, the Xietting tribe in the west came to trade pottery again. We hunted a giant pig today, so of course we had to have pig blood in the evening. We added meat and wild vegetables and stewed several large pots of it. We also had the pheasant that Luocheng shot today, so we made a pot of chestnut stewed chicken, a beggar chicken, a dozen fresh grilled fish, and a sweet and sour fruit for each person. The sumptuous dinner instantly brought the new and old members closer together. Everyone talked and laughed and enjoyed the meal very much. I have to say, the social interaction at the table in our great China is pretty awesome. It doesn't matter if you don't know each other. You can get to know each other by having a meal at a restaurant. It doesn't matter if you are not familiar with each other. You can get to know each other by having another meal at a restaurant. It doesn't matter if you are not close enough. After drinking half a caddy of white wine, I guarantee that you will call me my old friend. There is nothing that a bottle of liquor can't solve. If that doesn't work, then 2 bottles. TSK. What a pity. There is no liquor. We had to have pig blood in the evening. We added meat and wild vegetables and stewed several large pots of it. We also had the pheasant that Luo Chong shot today, so we made a pot of chestnut stewed chicken, a beggar chicken, a dozen fresh grilled fish, and a sweet and sour fruit for each person. The sumptuous dinner instantly brought the new and old members closer together. Everyone talked and laughed and enjoyed the meal very much. I have to say, the social interaction at the table in our great China is pretty awesome. It doesn't matter if you don't know each other. You can get to know each other by having a meal at a restaurant. It doesn't matter if you are not familiar with each other. You can get to know each other by having another meal at a restaurant. It doesn't matter if you are not close enough. After drinking half a caddy of white wine, I guarantee that you will call me my old friend. There is nothing that a bottle of liquor can't solve. If that doesn't work, then 2 bottles. TSK. What a pity. There is no liquor.
Chapter 37. Paddy Field Reconstruction Plan.
There was a sketch drawn on the rock wall of the cave. The elder had already figured out that it was the terrain outside the cave, with caves, small rivers, jungles, and some things that were not there originally. At this time, Luo Chong was thinking about how to plan the large open space in front of the cave in the future. The cave faces south and north. From the cave entrance, there is a small river about 900 meters to the east, a jungle about 1,000 meters to the north, and a jungle about 1,500 meters to the west, which is the direction to the Bald tribe. This piece of land is very large, 2,400 meters long from east to west, and about 1,000 meters wide from north to south. Assuming that 1 acre is 667 square meters, this piece of land is nearly 3,600 acres, equivalent to the area of 333 football fields. If all the fertile fields were planted with rice, I estimate that all the people in the tribe would never be able to eat up all the rice. Of course, it is impossible to plant all rice. Not to mention planting all rice, even how to plant it is a problem now. You have to know that although this area is large, it is all dry land, and rice must be planted in paddy fields. Just transforming these dry lands into paddy fields will be a huge project. With sufficient food and a safe environment, the human population will grow exponentially. The original Han tribe had only 52 people, plus the 9 people bought, and the 6 babies who were born in the past few days that Luo Chong took away, plus the 30 new people from the Tree tribe. There are now 97 people. The caves of the Han tribe can no longer meet the living conditions. Therefore, in the future, we will build houses, residential areas, rice fields, pepper fields, wild vegetable fields, farms, pastures, large warehouses, granaries, bronze smelting areas, and wood processing plants on this land. So many facilities will be placed on this land, and it must be well planned. The first problem to be solved is the transformation of paddy fields. Planting rice requires a lot of water, and grasslands also need water. Otherwise, how can there be a good harvest of grass, and how can those 2 cute gluttons be raised? The best way to turn dry land into paddy fields is to dig canals to divert water, which is relatively easy, but it is unrealistic to irrigate such a large area of land, unless the canals are widened and deepened to become rivers. Therefore, an artificial river is necessary, which is what the Han tribe really needs. The simple plan is to build a square town with a side length of 400 meters in the middle of the open space, and put the residential area, farms, warehouses, granaries, metal smelting area, and wood processing plant in this small town. The whole town is expected to provide living conditions for at least 5,000 people and can accommodate a maximum of 8,000 people. This scale is undoubtedly huge for the current Han tribe, but Luo Chong did not plan to build it all at once. Modern real estate developers know how to divide projects into stages, so there is no reason why Luo Chong would not know it. It can be completed in a few years. A moat was dug around this 400-meter square town, and the excavated soil was used to build the city wall. The wall did not need to be too advanced. A soil-covered brick structure would do, with rammed earth inside and a layer of bricks outside. This would effectively protect the rammed earth from being eroded by rainwater and would not require many bricks, which would greatly save the workload of firing bricks. This was because there were few people, so all aspects had to be taken into consideration. Then, with the moat as the center, dig an artificial river to bring water from the river, and then dig a loop so that the water from the small river flows into the moat and then flows back to the small river from the moat. In this way, a huge water network is formed. By digging some small canals along this water network, the entire plot of land can be irrigated. The preset width of the moat and the artificial river is 4 meters. In this way, the 8 or 9 meter wide river on the east side can be diverted here. The water flow rate remains unchanged, but the river channel is narrowed by half. So theoretically, the water flow speed of the artificial river will more than double, which will make it easier to install some water conservancy facilities, such as water wheels. Digging an artificial river will produce a lot of earth, but the earth cannot be piled up randomly. The earth dug out from the moat does not need to be transported and can be used to build the city on the spot, while the earth dug out from the artificial river for water diversion is used to make bricks. The specific plan is to take the cave as the center line and select 200 meters on each side as the site for the small city. The small river is 900 meters east of the cave, minus the 200 meters occupied by the small city. An artificial river 700 meters long, 4 meters wide and at least 4 meters deep is needed to divert water. The first phase of the project was to dig through the 700-meter-long water diversion river, and the excavated soil was directly fired into bricks to prepare for the subsequent city construction. The city can be built in a hurry, but the water must be diverted first, so as not to delay the spring plowing next year. He didn't want to have to carry water to irrigate the land when planting rice next year. For rice fields that need long-term flooding, that is simply unrealistic. The second phase of the project is the excavation of the moat, which has a total length of 1,600 meters on all sides, a width of 4 meters, and a depth of 4 meters. However, there is no need to rush this matter since the cave is still habitable enough, and there is no need to work so hard. The third phase is the rammed earth wall. The wall is designed to be a trapezoid with a base width of 4 meters, a top width of 2 meters, and a height of 5 meters. There are 4 gates, one on each side. There are 1.5 meters high arrow slits on the outside of the top of the wall, and wooden fences inside, so it is 6.5 meters high from the outside and 5 meters high from the inside. The width of the top of the wall is 2 meters, which can easily accommodate 3 people walking side by side. With such a thick and tall city wall, plus a 4-meter-wide moat outside, no one could possibly break in this era. In fact, humans are not the scariest things. Luo Chang's main concern is wild beasts. What if a moa or a saber-toothed tiger comes? If it's just a simple 2-meter-high brick wall, it's not even as tall as a moa. It's of no use. Luo Chang doesn't want to see the children in the city playing and suddenly a moa jumps in from outside the wall to eat the children, or some wild beast breaks through the wall. What are walls for? Walls are for defense. The fourth phase of the project is a 700-meter-long backwater river. The excavated soil can be burned into small bricks and used to build houses and various facilities in the city. The entire project is expected to be completed within 3 years at the latest. Otherwise, Luo Chang is afraid that there will be no room for people to live in the cave. This is fucking ridiculous. If there was a large excavator, digging this 3,000-meter-long river would only take half a month at most, but Luo Chang needed 3 years. The 4-meter thickness of the city wall occupies an area of 400 meters, which means that the actual area inside the city is a square of 396 meters. The city consists of 4 15-meter-wide main roads that intersect each other in a hashtag shape, dividing it into 9 areas in a 9-square grid. There is a square in the middle, which is used for sacrifices or gatherings, and can also be used to dry rice. The residential structures are all 1-story brick and tile houses, and each household covers an area of 100 square meters, which is a small square of 10 meters x 10 meters. The house faces south and is 4.5 meters wide and 10 meters long. The space can be divided into 3 rooms. Excluding the thickness of the wall, each room is 3 meters wide and 4 meters long, which is about the same size as a modern bungalow. There are bedrooms at both ends, and a kitchen and dining room in the middle. The bedrooms at both ends are built with a kong, which is connected to the stove in the middle kitchen. As long as the stove in the middle is always burning, It can provide heat to the bedrooms at both ends at the same time. The rooms are all equipped with large bunk beds like kings, and each bedroom is expected to accommodate at least 5 people. Such a house can accommodate 1 adult man and 2 or 3 adult women, plus 6 or 7 children, a minimum of 10 people in one household. There is no other way to allocate them this way, because adult men need to hunt, and there are too many casualties, and the ratio is seriously out of balance. The remaining 5.5 meters wide and 10 meters long yard can be used to build a thatched shed or a small storage room to store firewood, food, tools, or weapons, as well as a toilet. It all depends on your preference. You can make it whatever you like. The 400-meter long and wide city wall includes 4 15-meter wide crisscross main roads and a 16-meter wide ring road. Together with the 4-meter thickness of the city wall, the outer perimeter is 20 meters wide in total. Excluding the thickness of the city wall, the net size is equivalent to a 4-lane road today. In this way, 9 square areas with a side length of 110 meters are divided. 11 10-meter square brick houses can be arranged in a vertical row, with a 5-meter wide alley between every 2 rows. A total of 9 rows can be arranged, with 11 households in each row. There are 99 households in that area, and each household has at least 10 people. Therefore, one area can accommodate 1,000 people. The 9 districts in the city can be built in this way, except for the middle area which is left as a square. Therefore, the city can accommodate up to 8,000 people. But Luo Cheng didn't think about having people living in all 8 districts. He doesn't even have 100 people now, so he won't build so many houses at once. He will build more houses when there are people. According to Luo Cheng's budget, this city only needs to accommodate 5,000 people, and the remaining 4 districts will be built into warehouse area, metallurgy area, breeding area, and carpentry area respectively. The 9 urban districts will be built in batches over a period of more than 10 years.
Chapter 38. The Bronze Age begins.
Rome was not built in a day. Although the scale of the building planned by Luo Cheng is not even as large as the Colosseum, he can only take it step by step. After a dreamless night, Luo Cheng resumed his daily morning exercises at dawn the next day. Moreover, since he had obtained enough salt and food, his physical training became more diligent. After experiencing this cannibal incident, Luo Cheng has fully understood this world. Not only is there a threat from wild beasts, but the threat from humans is also not to be ignored. Although there is no large-scale war here, small-scale local disputes are inevitable. This is not an ambition, but just for survival and self-protection. Given the current state of the Han tribe, Luo Cheng would not be able to put his ideas into practice even if he had any. After the morning exercise, the tribesmen also came out. There were a lot of things to do today, and many things needed to be prepared. So there were not enough people, so Luo Cheng completely stopped collecting food. After the tribesmen had finished breakfast, they all went to the entrance of the cave and waited for Luo Cheng to assign them tasks. The lame man was assigned to make pottery today, and the children continued to cut grass, and they had to tie the grass into bundles according to Luo Cheng's demonstration so that it would be easier to store and transport. Big Mouth, Monkey, Demao and Airmao went to the back mountain and cut down all the saplings of the man-eating tree that were suitable for making spears. The women were divided into 2 teams. One team with more people went to the valley where Luo Cheng had gone before to collect sisal, which is the giant aloe vera. At least 100 leaves had to be cut from each plant. That thing would grow new leaves next year, so Luo Cheng was not worried at all. However, it was estimated that the amount of sisal to be collected would be large, so Luo Cheng asked the wooden pig to lead 6 blue gazelles and carry several large baskets to be responsible for transportation. Another smaller group of collectors also went to the jungle, but what they had to do was scrape the bark of the ash trees. The ash tree is named because it attracts wax moths. The wax moths suck the sap of the tree and then excrete a white secretion on the bark, which is the white insect wax. This was the main raw material used by the ancients to make candles, so the 2 words candle are both written with the word insect next to them. Modern candles are all made of paraffin wax, which is extracted from petroleum. There was no such thing in ancient times. The only other options were beeswax and insect wax. Luo Cheng asked them to collect insect wax not to make candles, but to use it to make molds for casting bronze. The remaining men were all coolies, who were assigned by Luo Cheng to cut down trees. They did not have Bald Cheng's chainsaw, so cutting down trees with stone axes was indeed cool labor. First, cut some trees that were about the same thickness as your legs, save the trunks for building the barn, and chop all the branches into firewood. Luo Cheng needed a lot of charcoal for smelting copper, so he had to reserve a lot of firewood. As long as the copper smelting was on track, he would only lack charcoal, and he would definitely not run out of it. The cut trees are pulled back by blue gazelles. If they can't pull them back, they ask baby macaques for help. They can't just let them eat them for free. The tribesmen did not understand this, as they felt that food should be stored in the fall. However, Luo Cheng told them that the food stored now would not be eaten up by the beginning of next spring, especially the fish. Although 100 people would not eat all the fish in a river to extinction, even if the situation was not that serious, it would take a month or two to restore the fish population to its current size. You have to know that many of the fish caught during this period still have fish eggs in their stomachs. These fish eggs were caught before they turned into small fish. The number of fish in this river will be affected to some extent in the future, so it is better to let those fish rest and recuperate first. When all the tribesmen went out to work, Luo Cheng was also working, and he was busier than others. First, make charcoal. Make a few large piles of firewood, cover the outside with mud, leave a few vents on the top and bottom, light the firewood from the top hole, and when the fire reaches the bottom hole, seal all the holes and let the firewood simmer in the absence of oxygen. After it extinguishes naturally and cools down, it becomes charcoal. Then he ground the old soil and ant-hole soil he brought back into powder, mixed them evenly, and made them into mud. He then made several crucibles and spoons to purify and make alloys. The mixed refractory clay is then used to make a mold, which is a flat plate with rows of sunken small grids on it. Each grid is the same size, so that copper and tin plates like chocolate plates can be cast. At that time, the ratio of copper to tin can be adjusted arbitrarily according to needs to make tools for different purposes, and you can break off as much as you need just like breaking chocolate. Bronze alloys have been widely used since before historical records. Its low melting point and easy casting characteristics also make it the earliest metal mastered by humans. It can be traced back to the Xia and Shang dynasties. It was widely used in weapons, farm tools, cooking utensils, musical instruments, and ritual vessels. The peak of its development was in the late Qin and early Han dynasties. It was not until the Han dynasty with the mature hundred-fold steelmaking technology that it was eliminated in large numbers. Bronze is an alloy of copper and tin, and some also contain lead, but Luo Cheng doesn't add that stuff. Firstly, he doesn't have it, and secondly, lead is also poisonous. It's okay if it's used to make tools, but not if it's used to make cooking utensils. The effects of bronze synthesized with different copper-tin ratios are also very different, but Luo Cheng does not need to experiment again. The ancients had already made great use of bronze thousands of years ago, and some of the techniques cannot be surpassed even in modern times. Different proportions are required for different uses. For casting bells and tripods, the ratio of copper to tin is 6:1. For casting axes or hammers, the ratio is 5:1. For casting spears and halberds, the ratio of copper to tin is 4:1. For bronze swords, the ratio is 3:1. For arrowheads, the ratio is 5:2. And for bronze mirrors, the ratio is 1:1. To sum up, the higher the copper content, the softer the bronze is, the more resistant it is, and the yellower its color is. That's why there is a saying of golden swords and iron horses in ancient poems, because bronze is golden in color, and the ancients therefore called it gold. In ancient times, the emperor would sometimes reward his ministers with a reward of 10,000 taels of gold, but in fact, the reward was just copper. The higher the tin content, the harder the bronze is and the lighter the color, even whitish. However, this kind of bronze is also more brittle and will shatter if hit hard or if two bronze swords are chopped against each other. Therefore, bronze was never used to make knives, but only to make stabbing weapons such as spears, guns, swords, halberds, and daggers. They could only stab and not chop. If they were chopped, they would break. So the scenes of people chopping with bronze swords in the movies are pure nonsense. It is precisely because of this fatal flaw that bronze weapons have been completely replaced by steel weapons. With charcoal and a mold, Luo Chong began to make a smelting furnace. He added some pottery fragments or brick dust to ordinary clay, mixed it with some chopped grass, and made it into mud. He built a cylindrical earthen furnace with a diameter of more than 40 centimeters. Although it was not very good, he could only make do with it for now. After all, it was not a large-scale smelting, so there was no need to build a whole blast furnace. Luo Chong bought 4 such stoves so they can be fired at the same time, which can save a lot of time. Because there are no metal tools now, it is impossible to make wooden push-pull bellows. We can only use python skin to make a few simple push-type leather bag blowers. We have to make do with what we can for now and upgrade the equipment when we have the tools in the future. Luo Chong tried the blower under the pottery kiln, and the effect was good. The lame man didn't know what Luo Chong was doing, but just by looking at the molds and blowers, he felt that these were more advanced things than firing pottery, and he was looking forward to seeing what new things the leader would come up with this time. Luo Chong's preparatory work was completed, and the world's first set of most primitive smelting equipment was also completed. He just had to wait for the charcoal to be burned and the furnace to be dried tomorrow before he could start working.
Chapter 39. Gold plate and silver plate.
Big Mouth and Monkey spent a whole day and collected hundreds of white poles that could be used as spears, but the adults who were cutting down trees were in a miserable state. After a day of tiring work, I only cut down less than 10 fir trees and haven't pulled them all back yet. Some of them are still lying in the forest, and 3 of the stone axes I used for cutting down trees were broken. But Luo Chong told them mercilessly that they had to continue tomorrow, but whoever did a better job would be given new equipment. New equipment? Everyone was confused. The stone axe was already the best tool they had ever seen. How could anything be better than a stone axe? After dinner, everyone started their after-dinner entertainment time, and Luo Chong began to boil wax by the fire. He put the collected wax blocks in the pot to melt, then skimmed off the impurities with a spoon, poured it into a large clay mold prepared in advance, and recondensed it into a whole block of white wax. Then cut it into small pieces and use a bone knife to cut it into the shape of tools, such as axe heads, hammer heads, planers, chisels of various sizes, and clamps. Carefully polish the wax blocks into a 1-to-1 size ratio with the real objects, then wrap the wax models with clay, leaving only a small opening, and then press them tightly so that the clay and wax blocks are in complete contact without leaving any gaps. Then let it sit and dry. When the clay is completely dry, place it on the fire to heat it to melt the wax inside again. Pour out the wax liquid inside, and you will get a hollow clay mold. The shape of the wax block wrapped in the mold will determine the shape of the space left inside. For example, if the mold contains an axe made of white wax, then when the wax block is melted into wax liquid and poured out, a space in the shape of an axe will be left inside. Moreover, a thin layer of wax will remain on the inner wall of the mold, which will facilitate demolding when casting is completed. Although the lost wax method of casting is a bit troublesome, it is more accurate and does not waste materials. The poured wax liquid can also be recondensed into large blocks and reused. The women who were collecting insect wax didn't understand what was going on, but they knew that their leader really needed this thing, so they decided to continue collecting it tomorrow. But the big tree and the lame man had a little difference. The big tree realized that this should be a weapon, but he didn't understand how such a soft thing could be used as an axe. The lame man's focus was on the clay mold. He himself was a potter, so he thought the mold should also be put in the fire. Was the chief going to use clay as a weapon? It is futile to explain everything to them. It is better to let them see the real thing. Early the next morning, the tribesmen took all the blue gazelles away. With Luo Chong's unremitting efforts to instill his ideas, they finally understood that wild animals can not only be used for food, but can also help humans work, and all you have to do is give some grass that is everywhere. Big Mouth, Monkey, Damao, and Ermao all stayed. Their task today was to operate the blower for Luocheng. The charcoal is ready. The heavy wood becomes very light after being burned into black charcoal. The layman's pottery from yesterday is also ready, and today he is specifically helping Luocheng. The layman is very smart, otherwise he would not have been able to develop the rake by himself, so Luocheng plans to teach him the method of copper smelting. It is impossible for Luocheng to do this kind of work alone in the future, so it is better to find an apprentice. The layman, a disabled person, is the best candidate because he does not need to run around to do these things. The 4 stoves were already dry, so this time 2 were lit at the same time. Damao and Ermao pressed the blower, while Dezue and Monkey loaded the charcoal. Under the action of the blower, flames shot out high from the furnace mouth. There was a layer of broken copper ore and a layer of charcoal, and 3 layers were piled up like this. The cylindrical furnace had a very good heat-gathering effect. After a while, the ore in the furnace began to turn dazzling red, and then slowly melted. The molten copper flowed through the gaps to the bottom of the furnace and gathered together, forming a lump of copper mixed with slag. There is also a tin mine being operated at the same time, and that one is faster. Tin ore has a very low melting point and can be melted in a few minutes under a strong fire. Using branches, 2 pieces of metal mixed with a lot of impurities were dug out from the ashes under the furnace. It was inconvenient without a blast furnace as pure copper liquid could not be obtained directly. Continue to add charcoal and ore into the 2 furnaces to keep the furnaces at a high temperature and continuously smelt copper. Just now, Luocheng personally watched 1 furnace, and only a piece of impure metal the size of a child's fist came out at a time. It was very slow. After refining for 7 or 8 times, which took about 3 or 4 hours, he finally accumulated a pile of impure gold and silver lumps. Because Luocheng brought back chalcopyrite with a content of more than 80%, a lot of crude copper was produced. If it was malachite or azurite, the copper yield would definitely not be that high. The tin yield of tin ore was not high either, but the proportion of tin and bronze was not large, so it was enough. 2 more furnaces were lit, and after the temperature rose, crucibles made of refractory clay were placed in the furnace. The crude copper and miscellaneous tin were placed in the 2 crucibles respectively, and a blower was used to increase the firepower. When the copper and tin were melted into liquid, because copper is a heavy metal with a high density, the lighter impurities would float to the top of the metal liquid. Then use a clay spoon to skim off the impurities on the surface, but don't throw it away. You can save it first. There is still some copper on these impurities. When you have enough, you can pile them together for secondary smelting. Use a prepared ceramic stick to take out the skimmed pure copper liquid together with the crucible, then pour it into a grid-shaped clay mold and let it sit to cool. The operation of tin liquid is the same, but faster. The melting point of tin is only over 200 degrees, otherwise it would not be used as a material for soldering circuit boards. Moreover, when copper and tin are mixed together, the melting point of the alloy will also be lowered. The layman, his 4 friends and Luocheng were all watching the liquid metal in the mold slowly solidify and cool down. They didn't understand the principle behind it, so they were very surprised. They didn't know why something like water could be burned out of stone, and that the boiling water would become harder and harder as the temperature dropped. The elder had nothing to do today, so he came to observe as well. He wanted to draw down everything Luocheng had done and pass it on to future generations, but copper smelting was too complicated, and he didn't know how to draw it, so he kept watching with a frown on his brow. Luocheng waited until the copper and tin plates were no longer hot, then he couldn't wait to pour out all the metal plates. It was noon at this time, and the metal plates, which were still warm to the touch, reflected dazzling light under the sunlight. The golden copper plate and the silver tin plate are horizontal on one side and have neat rows of small cubes on the other side, which is very beautiful. The lame man, the elder, and the 4 little friends all stared at the metal plates with their mouths wide open. They had never seen anything so beautiful and sparkling. The expressions on their faces were no less than the obsession of modern people when they see gold bricks. Even Xiubing, who was playing, was attracted over. He touched this and looked at that, and they were still hot. Chief, what is this? Xiubing picked at the bumps on the copper plate and asked Luo Chong with his head raised. Luo Chong rubbed his head and said, "This is called copper, and this is called tin. You just watch here. I'll go get the things." Xiubing nodded and whispered the words copper and tin to the lame man. Luo Chong brought over a bunch of tool molds, as well as several large, thin clay slabs with shallow grooves on them, which were used as rulers, and a panel saw. Luo Chong, who was in urgent need of metal tools, did not rest and immediately started casting bronze. Take out a new crucible, put the copper block in first, and after it melts into liquid, add the tin block. The melting point of copper is much higher than that of tin. The tin melts within a minute after it is put in. Stir it evenly with a ceramic rod, and then you can cast it. The first pot was cast with an axe and a hammer, but the ratio was slightly changed, with the copper-tin ratio being 5 to 1.5, that is, 20 copper ingots to 6 tin ingots, because Luo Chong was afraid that the 5 to 1 ratio would not be sharp enough and would be too soft. The boiling alloy liquid was poured into the mold. A puff of white smoke came out from the hole reserved in the mold, and then a small flame rose, shook twice, and went out with a puff.
Chapter 40. Establishing measurement units.
When the temperature dropped slightly, Luo Chong couldn't wait to smash the mold with a stone. Among the clay fragments, a large axe with a light golden color and shining light lay there quietly. The axe head was slightly larger than that of a fire axe and had a reserved hole for the handle. The work of sharpening the axe blade was given to the lame man, while Luo Chong began to prepare for the second furnace casting. 4 to 1.5 ruler and panel saw, 5 to 2 carving knife, 4 to 1 chisel, 3 to 1 planer, 4 to 1.5 hand drill, 4 to 1 4-sided gun head. A hand drill is made by first casting a T-shaped flat bronze sheet and then heating the drill bit in a fire. After it is red hot, 2 square bricks are used to clamp the drill bit, and the copper sheet is twisted into a spiral drill bit like a twist. After cooling, the blade is polished and a wooden handle is added to drill holes in wood. When the tribesmen came back in the evening, all work stopped. There were 4 small earthen furnaces, 2 for smelting and 2 for purification. The output was very low. At the end of the day, most of the charcoal was consumed, and only about 40 kilograms of copper and tin plates were produced. However, Luo Chong did not bring back much ore, so he could make do for the time being. A large golden axe with a sharp blade and a handle made from a man-eating tree sapling, with the joints glued together with fish maws, a large golden firefighting a tree-cutting axe is ready. There are also 2 panel saws with wooden handles glued on, 1 large and 1 small, one for 2 people and the other for 1 person. Luo Chong called the exhausted logging team. 4 of their stone axes were broken today. These were seized from the cannibals, and there were only a few left. When Dashu and his friends saw the big axe shining with golden light, they immediately gathered around. They also saw the board saw, but didn't know how to use it. What is this made of? What a beautiful axe. Dashu's eyes were almost glued to it. Haha, there's also this. Luo Chong smiled and took out a spear with a white shaft and a gold head. The bronze spear head was in the shape of a flat quadrangular cone, 30 centimeters long, with a round tubular groove at the end, and a white wooden shaft smeared with fish maw was inserted. The total length was 2 meters and 5, and it looked murderous. The tribesmen were all stunned. Is this still a spear? It's too beautiful, especially Beast Fong and One Ear. They have been used to using wooden spears for a while. Now seeing this golden-headed spear, they are drooling. Chief, what are these made of? Are there any more? Are there any for us? Chief, what are these made of? Are there any more? Are there any for us? The tribesmen couldn't wait to ask, but they also knew that if there was only one, it would definitely not be their turn to use it. Luo Chong smiled and took out a piece of chalcopyrite and handed it to Dashu. It's made of this kind of stone. There aren't many of them now. You know we didn't bring back much. The people of the Yuanshu tribe were stunned. They had dug this kind of stone before, but the things made from it were different from stone. They didn't look like they were made of stone at all. The wooden pig is the most honest and direct. Since there are few stones, let's go dig more. Chief, let's go dig some more stones. We know where they are. Luo Chong nodded, but told them that the amount they dug was too little. He needed to make some things first, and after the winter, he would be able to dig up a lot more. By then, everyone would have a spear like this. So now they should just work hard. The tribesmen all calmed down and believed that what the leader said was still credible. Since he said that everyone would have it, then everyone would definitely have it. Then Luo Chong took them to the chopped wood and taught them how to use the panel saw and handsaw. Two people pulled a flat saw, which was placed on the end of the log. They pulled it back and forth, and sawdust like dust fell down. It didn't take long before they sawed off a round piece of wood, which made everyone marvel. A one-handed handsaw was used to clear the branches. A side branch as thick as a wrist was sawed off in less than a minute, and the cut end was smooth, unlike the bumpy ones caused by splitting with a stone axe. This greatly increased the utilization rate of the wood, saved labor and effort, and was very fast. The 1-meter-long axe is also very easy to use. You can use all your body strength to swing it. If the Han tribe uses it vigorously, a tree as thick as a human leg can be cut down in just a few strokes. Luo Chong checked the axe blade. Since the axe blade was relatively thick, there was no sign of damage. After everyone learned how to use these tools, Luo Chong let them eat and rest. After dinner, the tribesmen gathered together to listen to the lame man talk about copper smelting, while Luo Chong began to formulate various units of measurement. Only with units of measurement can we gradually develop civilization and move towards industrialization. No, it is development towards agriculture. Otherwise, when we plant rice next year, how can we calculate the area of 1 acre of land, and how can we know how many kilograms of grain 1 acre of land produces? Of course, this is also very simple. As long as we have a length standard first, everything else will not be a problem. Luo Chong used a chisel to carve scales on the copper ruler, taking the width of the ring fingernail as 1 centimeter, and carved out a 1-meter-long ruler. He brushed molten tin into the grooves of the ruler and polished it again, thus creating a gold ruler with silver scales. Based on the length unit, area units include square centimeters, square decimeters, and square meters. 667 square meters equal 1 acre. Any larger area is not used now. We will talk about it later. With this standard unit of length, we can measure volume and set capacity units, which are liters, which is 1 cubic decimeter. 125 liters is equal to 1 do, which is 1/8 cubic meter. The unit of weight is even easier. It is said in the junior high school physics textbook that 1 cubic centimeter of fresh water weighs exactly 1 gram. Half a liter of water is 500 grams, which is 1 caddy. 1 liter of water is 1 kilogram, and 1,000 kilograms is 1 ton. The angle unit is also easy to find. A circle has 360 degrees, so you just need to find a standard right angle. Get a water tank and tie a stone to it with a twine to make a plumb bob. Sink the stone into the water. The angle formed by the vertical twine and the horizontal plane is the perfect right angle. With this right angle, you can use the formula for the sum of the interior angles of a triangle to get various angles. Luo Chong has always felt that as a time traveler, he was simply asking for trouble when he insisted on using obsolete unit systems such as inches, feet, and yards, even though he clearly had a mature and scientific measurement system. And facts have proved that the decimal unit of length is most conducive to the development of science. Anyway, he is the boss now, and he is the one who sets the standards for this world. So why should he make himself uncomfortable? The women have stopped collecting wax, as there is now enough wax and the sisal has been collected. So they are now concentrating on weaving ropes. The children were lying outside the rabbit pen, watching the rabbits inside giving birth to baby rabbits. The 3 pregnant rabbits had all given birth, and they were all quite large, with 6 or 7 babies in each litter. Another 20 little lives were born, and the herd of more than 30 rabbits had nearly doubled. Luo Chong couldn't help but sigh at the reproductive ability of rabbits. The lame man has had a long experience in pottery making, so he can now help Luo Chong carve wax models. The round-headed iron shovel, or copper shovel, needs to be cast in batches and can be used in many things, whether it is for digging rivers or farming. With the sample given by Luo Chong, it is no problem for the layman to copy it. Luo Chong himself was studying the most critical thing, the plow, which he had very little contact with, and could only figure it out based on his limited memory. He was going to make two sizes, a large one for the Deinonychus and a small one for the mullet-bearing antelopes. The one for the mullet-bearing antelopes was for plowing the land, while the one for the Deinonychus was for digging rivers. They must be used to dig the river, otherwise they would eat so much grass for nothing every day, and Luo Chong was unwilling to accept that.